Hello everyone, I'm Ron Grant coming to you live and direct from Tortola in the Virgin Islands. You're watching 284 Media. Thank you so much for your time. Journey to Elections 2023. We continue with the feature, of course, Progressive Virgin Islands Movement at-large candidates. You heard from the chairman as well as the two women candidates, and we're now joined by Mr. Stacy, the people call him Buddha, Metha. Of course, he's an educator and senior nonprofit executive. He is going to today outline his plans once elected for the people of the Virgin Islands. We'll be right back after a quick commercial break.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. My name is Kamal Haines. Most of you know me from 284 News, but now you get to see me in a different light on my very own show called Health is Wealth. We have Joel Turnbull.
I don't want you to arch your back when you're pulling down.
Milton McLean.
First of all, right, your footwork.
Stephen Payne.
That was a 9 out of 10. I know you got the service down pat.
Steve Augustine.
You did a pretty hard workout today, so perhaps...
And as you can see, it's actually
you're feeling it.
Alonzo Boynes.
Taekwondo.
Adam Murrows.
I'll speak as if you're an absolute beginner.
I am an absolute beginner.
You are an absolute beginner.
And Seth Graham.
It bites.
It will bite.
Get your water, get your fruits and veggies, and experience a wealth of knowledge about getting healthy.
Welcome back everyone, and thank you so much for sticking with us. You're watching 284 Media. I'm Ron Grant. As promised, we're today joined by Mr. Stacy Metha. He is an educator and senior nonprofit executive. Mr. Metha, thank you so much for your time and welcome to our studios.
Thank you for having me, Ron.
You make up one of the 4 at-large candidates for the Progressive Virgin Islands Movement Party in the 2023 Journey to Elections. We're going to get to your track record. We're going to get to a lot of things. Here in the Virgin Islands, persons sometimes have a problem seeing you, or a difficult time seeing you in a capacity outside of your ordinary capacity. I say that to say that you are known to be an educator, and in your most recent capacity as the executive director of YEP, perhaps one of the most impactful and influential names that we've come to know and love. Why leave that comfort and run for political office?
So first off, I appreciate the compliment. So Ron, I have sat and I have waited for many years hoping that the impact that I was making through YEP would catch on. We've done a lot in the eastern end of the island and even impacted young people in other small communities throughout the BVI. YEP was a project that was a pilot project that was started in 2005, and we started, the building opened in 2007. Over the years, we've had conversations with leaders. You know, I've often been asked, well, Metha, why is there not more YEPs? There are not more YEPs because the persons who we had elected at the time did not make it an issue to try to have more YEPs. There's been talks over the years of having one in King Garden Bay. That was in the early years when we started in 2007, 2009. Then we started talking about Bogless Bay, the 6th district. We talked about Road Town. We talked about Virgin Gorda. We even talked about on the western side of the island, but nothing has ever materialized. It isn't for the lack of trying, it isn't for the lack of wanting to do it. And you know, most recently I sat down and I said to myself, well, I guess if it's gonna happen, if anything is gonna happen based on youth development in the territory, maybe I need to sit somewhere different to try to make that happen. After spending, it's now 20 years I've been working on the project, I've always hoped that we would have had a second one and then maybe a snowball effect. But that has not happened, so this is something that I would really like to make happen.
Understood. If elected, what would you say would be some of your key areas of focus?
So education is number 1 on my list. Education, youth development, the economy, and also our environment, waste management, those kind of things. In terms of education, I've been looking at our education system. I resigned in, I think it was 2010 or something like that. I was forced to resign from the system.
Okay.
And prior to that, I was on a leave of absence. Our system itself is not where it was. And at times I feel like we're not sure where we're going. I'm not knocking what has been done or even what is being attempted now. But I don't think we have looked at our system in depth enough to figure out what it is we really need and want to do. I say that because I'm a proponent of an education review. Countries like St. Kitts have taken advantage of UNESCO's educational reviews, where you look at the entire system. You're looking at your teachers, their qualifications, you're looking at the evaluations, appraisals, the curriculum, instructional methodologies. You're looking at how children are learning, how money is spent, infrastructure, desks, even food, those things. And then when you find out where your system sits and where it's deficient, you target those things. And for me, that is a very big thing because I'm big on statistics. Where are we? Where do we need to fix what we need to fix? And how do we get there? Instead of jumping up and saying, you know what, let's do this or let's do that. And then 2 years later, we're no more forward or we haven't advanced in what we really want to do. We know areas right now that our teachers are not compensated correctly. How do we fix it? You know, staff morale is not there. We have discipline issues. The EPE is an issue. Community service, do we need more apprenticeship there? Should the EPE be done in an earlier grade? I think these conversations need to materialize where there is actually an action to it. In youth development, we've lost all our after-school programs that were run by the government. Why is that? And you know, how do we fix it? When we look at the blue economy in the BVI, how do you get more children involved in those things? How do we get credit for programs done outside of the school, in the school? Where has summer school gone for children in terms of raising their grades? You know, when I was in elementary school and even in secondary, I was advanced. What are we really doing for advanced children in the territory? Special needs children, where are they at? I find that a lot of the times we have great ideas, we have reports, we have things that can be done, but it's not being done. I'm not naive to think that I know all the answers. I left the system, and when I left it, it was not where I would have wanted it to be. I was 26, I wanted to be a principal, I just finished my graduate studies, and I was told I was too young. So I was given an opportunity, and I left. I think I did a fairly good job where I left, and now I want to return. And I believe that the future of the system lies in those teachers who are on the ground, who have recently returned from university, or who are seeing the things in other places that they believe we can do. You know, this belief that you have to do it in every school. I don't believe that. I believe you can pilot it in one school, see if it works, and then spread it throughout the territory. But when I look at the curriculum, I look parts of the curriculum, a lot of the things are the same things I did when I was a child. So, you know, defining education in the BVI is important. What do we think our children need to be doing in schools in order to make sure that when they leave, they're an asset to the society here and also the world itself? So that conversation from the children to the eldest in our society needs to happen so we know what it is we want. Once we have that, we have an educational review, we can make it happen. And where youth development is, I think that's a wide open field. And having had the last 20 years to do so much with YEP, I am so eager to try to bring some of the experiences I have had in isolation to the rest of the territory.
Thank you for sharing. Speaking of the past 20 years at YEP, I want to touch a little bit and go a little bit deeper as it pertains to your track record. Tell us about your track record and what you think would qualify you to be an elected representative. You
know, it's been difficult for me to put that together. I've tried to be as humble as I can in my life, so it was very difficult for me. Track record. I started teaching at the age of 15. I'm so proud of that, that when I came out of education, when I came out of BVI High School, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I was a bit rough around the edges. Some people might say I still am. I went to Althea Scatliff and Curling Letson, Gordon and Calendar, they took me under their wings. I vaguely remember you being there at the time. And I was there and I found myself undertaking the responsibility of a full-time teacher at the age of 15, making 16, because the teacher that I was shadowing was not available at the time. And I remember going out on the playground, playing with children during their lunch breaks and stuff like that, and just bonding. And it was a beautiful time for me. And eventually, after getting a government scholarship, I went to school, UVI, graduated magna cum laude. I was on honor societies and those kind of things down there. And while in my final semester at UVI, I started my undergraduate studies. I returned to the BVI. I was employed at Althea Scatliff Primary School again, and I continued doing my graduate studies here with some of my colleagues. I transferred to Ebenezer Thomas, I think, in 2003, and then I finished my degree in 2004. That was around the time when I started working on YEP. Since then, I have been a youth assessor on the youth court, where we sat on the youth court and we saw a lot of the issues facing our young people. I have sat on the National Drug Advisory Council or Board, That was, a few years ago where we talked about the impact of things that I'm seeing now in our territory. I've sat on several nonprofits in terms of helping them build their capacity. Most recently, I sat on the, I think it was the board for public assistance through social development, but more so targeted towards persons in prison. Can't remember the name of that one off the top of my head. I've worked with children in terms of youth programs. I've helped with capacity building with other programs. I've been a lecturer at HLSCC, and I teach swimming. I work with children through scuba diving and that kind of stuff. And I'm known sometimes still as a photographer.
Got you. I want to go back to your qualifications. You hold a bachelor's degree in elementary education, concentration in social sciences, which you mentioned from the University of the Virgin Islands, and you hold a master's degree in education, administration, and leadership, also from the University of the Virgin Islands. Some of the things that you did not mention that I'd like to highlight, in March of 2021, you supported the RASTA bill, which we all know that was quite a pivotal point in our history. Past member of education boards, of course, you mentioned HLSCC. On the socioeconomic aspect, there are a lot of needs in the territory, as you're aware. What are you most concerned about, particularly when it comes to that social aspect of our children?
So I've seen it where I've worked through YEP, where the aspirations of a child is sometimes defined by our society based on their parents.
Absolutely.
And I have become very frustrated with that, Rod. My dad and my mom is from Anguilla, my dad is from the UK. My father did not grow up in a wealthy family, despite being a Caucasian. Let's just put it on the table, And my mother didn't grow up in a wealthy family either. And I have worked myself to the point of trying to make sure that I have a better life, right? Because that's what my parents taught me. You should do better than your parents. And I think a lot of persons still adhere to that, even though life is much more difficult. But when you label a child based on their parents and you say, well, Darwin's survival of the fittest, that child is not going to make it wrong, it is not something I can subscribe to. Opportunities in the BVI are becoming more and more of a privilege, where I think the privilege should be something that is earned, right? But the opportunity should be something that is available. And if we give children in our society the opportunity to rise from poverty or even, just circumstance, our country will be better. And I think that's something that, for me, needs to happen.
How has the political journey, the campaign trail, how has that been going for you?
It's been mixed. I've had persons come to me and say, I'm not voting for you because if I vote for you, you're going to leave YEP and my children won't be able to have the opportunities and the activities they've had. So for the record, I am not resigning from YEP. We will see what happens on election day, but I see YEP as a legacy for me.
Okay.
I've worked really hard there. I've made a lot of sacrifices. And I'm very, very happy with what has happened there. I've had persons come to me, teacher, as they would call me when I taught them. I believe in you. And I have people come to me straight up and say to me, I am for a party. And I like you, but I can't vote for you. Or I don't like you. There's been mixed reactions. I like it. I have an opportunity now. I am not a person who likes the limelight as much as people may think. But I've realized I have to step out of that comfort zone and be more in the public eye. So I've liked engaging with people. I like people who are real. I like the aggression. If you're upset about something, tell me. And then there are people who put hope in me. And I appreciate that. I don't take it lightly. I know what it is, Ron, to stand in a line for hours, cast a vote for someone, watch them get elected, then watch them disappear, watch them not answer the phone, not speak to you in public, to have them be apprehensive that you're coming to ask them for something they don't want or can't give you. So I think for me, the biggest impact thus far is understanding that people have hope in me, at least those who express it and are truthful with it. And I don't take that lightly. So it's interesting to move from watching a bright-eyed child watch me and be like, Mr. Mehta, can I do this? To now watching a grown adult And even some of those who are older than me, they can be my mother, they can be my father, my grandparent, watching me and saying, you know, I believe in you.
Thank you for that. There's so much I can ask you, and I'm going to take my time with it. You would also hear, because I've heard it in interacting with persons, I will vote for you, or I want to vote for you, but I need help.
Yes.
We have not, unfortunately, segued from a part in our culture where persons, whether by want or need, beg. And not only just beg in exchange for a vote. When you, or I don't know if you have come across that as yet, but how do you deal with that? And what do you say to persons who feel as though they need to basically sell their vote?
So there are two things to this. I had two persons ask me recently. One, I knew it was a joke, and another person, I think they were quite serious. Ron, a lot of our people, as you know, it's not a cliche, they're hurting. You know, meeting everyday bills is very difficult in a BVI, and survival is very difficult. I've never sold my vote, and this is why I personally have never sold my vote. If I sell my vote for $500 to someone who gets elected and they're there for 4 years, I've done the math, trust me. I'm basically giving them my vote for less than $30 a month. Okay? Okay, so that's basically $1 a day. So you're selling your vote if they're in for 4 years at the lower end, or mid-level. You're basically selling it for a bottle of water a day.
And you're saying that you're not worth much.
Exactly. And that's exactly what it equates to. So if you're gonna ask for something that will last and it will have greater value. You know, biblically, people like to say, teach a man to fish versus giving him a meal, that kind of stuff. And I do believe in it. If you're gonna ask me to help you in a way that directs you towards something, fine. I had a young man recently ask me for a letter of recommendation. I gave it to him. He came back, he said, Mr. Mehta, I got the job. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to point you in a direction that helps you. I don't believe every solution to every problem is the same. Some people need food. And if I meet you and Ron, if I can support your business and buy something from your business so that you have money to make your day where it needs to go, absolutely I'll do it. But ethically, I don't think it's right. So I'm not gonna participate in it.
Thank you. You have the persons as well, particularly, I used to think that it was more a young people thing, but unfortunately it's not. When I speak to persons of all ages, all demographics, male, female, some have worked in the civil service for 25 plus 30 years. Believe it or not, many persons are saying that they will not participate in the election, that they are not voting. What do you say to that demographic of persons?
So I'll say this to you. Most persons that have said that to me, it's like, you know, you've been in a relationship and you've been hurt. And I absolutely get that because I have been a voter. I have voted for persons sitting in the House of Assembly right now that I am disappointed in. I voted for members of the previous House of Assembly that I've been disappointed in. But I don't think it's fair, and I'll encourage them not to hold those who are new or even those who are trying again accountable for those who did things in the past. Why? Because if we lose hope in anything, it's best we just sit down and we allow ourselves to be victims of anything else. You know, it's difficult to look at something and say to yourself, I'm going to take a chance. One of the main reasons I'm doing this is because the young people that I've worked with over the years have said to me, it's slim pickings. There's not much to choose from. Mr. Mehta, why don't you do it? No, that's not for me. I've heard it for years, I've said it for years. And most recently, I sat in a room with probably about 12 young people, ages, let's say 18 to 30. And they said to me, you know, we like you, but we're not sure, and that's fine. I said, but you should exercise your right to vote. I said, because those who support parties will support their party no matter what, because that's their belief. But what I'm afraid of, Ron, is that if we don't show our young people, and even all ages, that you can have someone who is not perfect, but someone who understands what is going on and wants to make a difference, then 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I don't know what type of leaders we will have in the territory. And the courage to put yourself into the public light and say, hey, I want to represent you, is not an easy task. And I wonder how some of them can do it for 20 years. You know, I think for me, when I look at this, what I'm saying to most people is, I'm looking for a job, because it is a job. And election is a job interview. So listen to the way people speak and say to yourself, if I owned a business, would I hire that person to do what they're saying? And if you're convinced, then go ahead. Unfortunately, we have to wait until 4 years to change that person.
Correct.
Which I think, again, like you said, when the Rasta law was there, completely forgot about that. You know, things can change in the BVI if you're willing to have the courage to change it, be more vocal. And I love the fact that social media allows people to be vocal about how they feel. So, you know, give me a chance. Give someone else a chance. Your vote is a privilege. And I remember when I got my right to vote, and I was told it's a privilege. Some of us are born with it. Some of us have to earn it. Use it.
On the matter of education, I have to ask you about your stance on bullying. And the reason I'm asking that is because throughout the past few years, particularly, and because of social media, we've seen the very brutal and blatant disregard for children who are going to school and have to suffer from bullying. We've also seen what I would consider a lack of action and empathy by whether you say the sitting government or lawmakers through the education process. If elected, first of all, what are your thoughts on this matter, and how would you see yourself really tackling this matter?
So let's be very candid. I'm biracial, so I'm mixed. I grew up in a BVI where I was teased, you know, blatantly teased about being biracial. Bullying is not something that I will ever subscribe to. Within the BVI, what I've noticed is bullying happens, but it's also something that's used in the most cruel way, which is promotion of it. So you'll see videos of children teasing each other, beating each other, ridiculing each other.
And you see adults reposting and resharing that information.
And that bothers me. Sometimes it bothers me more than the bully, because I can go to the bully, I can have a conversation about your behavior. But that person who stands and feels the need to record it rather than stand up and say, don't do it, that bothers me more. I know the schools have been looking at disciplinary codes, updating the discipline codes and stuff like that. We do have an Education Act, and I think it needs to speak more to bullying and consequences. Our youth court hasn't met in a very long time, and I think some of these things need to happen. I think parents need to be held more responsible for the actions of their children. All around, I think it's a community effort, educating people why it shouldn't happen, but the ramifications of doing it. I would rather correct a child at the age of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 than see that child grow up and build on those antisocial behaviors and wind up being someone that we are more concerned about later on in our community. So I am 100% behind you in that it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be more firmly addressed.
All right, I have to ask you, as it pertains to the ability for students to receive scholarships and go abroad to be able to have an opportunity. We are still at a point where, and you alluded to it earlier, but we didn't get into the conversation about persons feeling as though they're forced to do what their parents have done, or it's based on the success of it. If elected, let's take a look at the scholarship committee and the process of persons applying and receiving scholarships. What would you do to not only revamp that process, but to make sure that it is fair, equal, and also make sure that we're opening our horizons to the various levels of what we're training? Some careers are not supported. When I wanted to study media, I was told, don't do it, you're going to waste your money. What are we doing to support, or what would you do to support persons who perhaps want to get into engineering and other fields that are not so popular?
So, Rod, I think let's start with before the scholarship. Let's talk about the education of children. There are subjects that our school system have not evolved to. So I'll talk about physical education, which is a little different for me to talk about. The sports that we have in physical education are the same ones that I remember doing in high school. Martial arts is not there. Fencing is not there. Wrestling is not there. Boxing is not there. I'm not saying these are the answers. I'm just saying there are other sports, and some children may enjoy other sports. So when I spoke about curriculum, I'm saying that I think there are other things we need to add in. Coding is not there. Maybe we need another language. Maybe we need to start looking at more engineering in our schools, more medical training in our schools. Again, it comes down to how we define education and what we think our society needs. So when it comes to scholarships, I think scholarships has to be a two-tier process. One, we need to look at our local economy, right? Which areas are we trying as a government to make sure we have? You know, I've sat in meetings where having someone trained in statistics, government is lacking from it. We know within the Attorney General's chambers, we don't have enough attorneys, right? You spoke about media. I heard a very passionate young lady last Friday who left the system talk about, media and where, a content manager, a social media manager, these things are different, but it's not understood. For me, Ron, where it stands is there are different layers, there are different jobs that scholarships can do. You can't always think that we need to go in one direction. There are priority areas, but there must be a balance. And if a child walks in and that child says they want to be a neurosurgeon, why not? So for me, it comes down to whether or not the person has the ability to do it. And sometimes it's taking a risk on a child.
Correct.
So if you have 25 scholarships and 10 of them, 12 of them go to the priority areas, another go to upcoming priority areas, why can't 2 or 3 go to that child who has a dream? And again, I don't believe government can do everything. Public-private partnership is necessary. And sometimes, and a lot of times, you'll find that there are scholarships out there in our community that are available for children. Maybe it's time for those scholarship groups and government to work more closely together to make sure that what is happening in the country is for the benefit of everyone and not just those. As a recipient of 2 government scholarships, I understand what it's like to want to get funded for school and not know where to get it. And changing what you want to do in life just because this is what is being offered is not always encouraging.
Thank you so much. As I mentioned, we are on the journey to elections, and of course, we would have another opportunity to speak with you, but we're almost out of time. In the final analysis, when persons do go to the polls, why should they support you, Stacy Mather, along with your at-large team?
So I'll say this, I'm asking for votes for myself. Like I said previously, I'm looking for a job. I am a person who is a worker. I have been designed by God to do work. I do hope for an easier life as I get older, but I'm looking for a job. I think I have the skills. Well, I know I have the skills necessary where areas of focus I would like to get into. It will depend on where the chips fall on election day, but I'm going to, and I have the intention of helping and doing whatever I can, wherever I can, if I am successful. The conversation of whether to run independent or run with a party is a big conversation right now. I chose to run with a party, and I'm very proud of the persons that I'm running with because I see where I am deficient, they are strong. We've had a lot of conversations over the last couple of months, and I know where their stance is on issues. I'm a person who likes to say, this is what you said to me. This is what your words were. And I like people to stand by what they said. This is the same thing that the voters are saying to me. You change when you get in there. Well, at least where I stand, Mr. Skelton is very good with finance. He's very business-minded, and I appreciate that. Shayna is a person who's very organized. She understands civil engineering. She understands the civil service processes and things that are phenomenal in terms of you can call her like she's a library. She is basically our Google. Ingrid has her legal background, and what I find is that's very necessary when we're going to be dealing with the Commission of Inquiry. Again, she has a finger on the pulse of what is going on socially in the BVI, and she understands how a person needs to or can come from nothing to something. And for myself, education, government paid for me to go to school, and I want to use what I learned to help the territory. I'm at that point in my life. Youth development was something I left to do, and I want to get back into it and help the territory on a larger scale. At the end of the day, I think PVIM has the best slate in terms of at-large candidates, and the voters can listen more and make that decision for themselves. But above all, vote. Get out and vote.
I want to thank you so much for your time and, of course, stopping by our studios. The Journey to Elections 2023, of course, your team here at 284 Media will continue to keep you informed and give you an opportunity to meet the persons seeking to represent us in the next House of Assembly. I'm Ron Grant. You've been watching 284 Media. Have a beautiful rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Birthed from the need for progression and the need for a new direction, the Progressive Virgin Islands Movement's PVIM logo is a modern and refreshing emblem of hope and inspiration. 2 tenets of the PVIM. An arrow held vertically is a symbol of divinity. An arrow held horizontally is a symbol of stagnation. But an arrow held diagonally is our symbol of progression. The curve appearing in the arrow is no mistake. as it represents the unfortunate turn that our beloved territory has taken. But straight and narrow is the path to redemption, recovery, and resilience. And we're confident